we had no intention of bringing up the lawsuit, but yet you've still got your panties in a wad about something that happened 10 years ago. And in my opinion, if you'd have done what was right in the first place, you would never have had a lawsuit filed against you.
David, I'm just going to jump in for our listeners who do not know. In 2003, a class action lawsuit of the pre-1980 players was filed by an attorney from Detroit, Michigan, named Jim Acho. Jim should never have filed it. He did it on a number of reasons. He said the largely, well, he didn't even say largely, the all-Caucasian pre-1980 players had their Title VII rights violated, which is just ridiculous considering that there were so many persons of color who were part and are still part of the pre-1980 players. I think, David, you might have played with Wayne Cage from Monroe, Louisiana, who was the first baseman.
I play with Wayne. Yeah, I play with Wayne with the Indians.
Yeah, he is an African American. So Jimmy Acho filed this lawsuit under very specious grounds, and a lot of people don't know this, but Acho's law firm handled the legal matters for the Detroit Tigers. So that was strike two. Right. It was just a very poor lawsuit, and it was not an action that should have been taken seriously.
Correct, and it wasn't. I mean, the judge out there said, I understand your concerns, but based on case point and everything, this lawsuit has no validity. But I guess my big thing, Doug, is, does today's player even know?
I say no.
I would have to say no. I mean, Foster always said, and Fair always said, yeah, we talked about it in the spring training meetings. Well, Mark, I don't know what your experience was about those spring training meetings, but basically maybe one person out of the 50 or 60 in the meeting might have been paying actual attention. Most of us were just there seeing, hopefully, let's see how much our licensing check is this year. How much is our gift from Tops this year? What can I get out of the gift book? Or where are we going on vacation with the extra $1,000, $1,500 we're going to collect? So based on that, I'd say today's player is probably no different. They can't wait to get that maybe 50, 60, 70. I've heard as much as $80,000 a year at times, licensing check. It's not that I don't believe any of today's players begrudge the money that they're making, but do they not realize one of the reasons they're making that money is because of 1,600 of us at one point in time went on strike or were locked out of spring training because we'd threatened strike? I mean,
I don't think they do.
Today's player, they 43 days and they're eligible for a retirement check, and that retirement check's probably, I don't know, maybe $20,000 a year for 43 days of work.
Actually, is Country on the phone?
I think he wasn't on the phone. He was on the Facebook Live, but I think he had a drop.
Yeah. According to our buddy with air quotes, Steve Rogers, the minimum pension for anyone who just played 43 game days is $3,589. Now, David makes more than that from this award agreement, but here's the difference. The person who's only on a Major League roster for 43 game days, basically the last 6 weeks of the season, you're a September call-up, that $3,589 is going to be able to be shared with their designated beneficiary or their loved one or their spouse. Preston Warren or Ryan or Reed or Lauren are not going to get squat out of David's money when he passes, and we hope sincerely that does not occur for a very, very long time.
And if they don't start coming over and telling me how much they love me, they ain't getting anything.
I'll tell you, Dave. I found out about this cause last year on a podcast show with Mark Littell and myself called Marc and Doug in the Midday, and we had this guest on, this Mr. Gladstone guy, and he talked to us about the book and everything. And full disclosure, I'm not an activist kind of guy. I'm kind of a, you know what, you get what you get and you pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of guy. But when I heard this, I said to myself, wait a second here. And I said to Doug, if you remember this, Doug, I said, a lot of these guys spent 4, 5, 6 years in the minor leagues on top of their major league career. Now, that's like being an apprentice. So if you're in a regular union and you're an apprentice, that counts towards your pension. Why does this not happen here? And why are we talking about an industry that's $1 billion industry splitting hairs over a few pennies? And it wigged me out to the point where I went nuts on the show and I called out Tony Clark and Steve Rogers. I said, "Here's our number. Dial in. We'll talk to you anytime." I think I went.
We actually ran the actuarials on it back in 2010, 11, whatever. We knew what it was going to cost, basically, for the owners or the players to do this, or both of them. Basically, it boiled down to roughly a $15 million a year, and I know that's a lot of money, but in the game of baseball, it's chump change. It was going to cost baseball, wherever it came from, $15 million a year. Now, there's probably other I know because of federal pension laws.
David, can I just interrupt for one quick question? Just
sure.
One quick second. I just want to put this in perspective for our listeners and our viewers. $15 million, that's about what the Mets get paid by the insurance company for David Wright not to play every year until his contract's up. So that is such small money.
Look at it another way. How many major league teams are there?
30.
What's the minimum salary?
Minimum salary right now is $135,000, going up to $565,000 next year.
Yep, $565,000.
Right. So it would cost each, if it's funded strictly by the owners, the way it is now, it would cost each team less than one minimum salary. Pardon my French, they pissed more money away on that wondering about or putting a California softball rule into a baseball game this year. You gotta be kidding me. I mean, I wonder how much money they wasted on that one.
They wrote it all.
Anyone who does not know, unlike the payments to the Negro League veterans, and we're not going to make an invidious comparison because obviously the color of Mark's skin, my skin, Country, Littell's skin, David's skin wouldn't have precluded us from playing the great national pastime. So we say, hey, phenomenal that the veterans of the Negro Leagues got payments totaling $10,000. And then that was in 1997. In 2003, there was another group of Negro League veterans who got $40,000 for 4 years or $350 a month for life. That's phenomenal. And I echo David's statement earlier that, we don't begrudge Clayton Kershaw to make $31.17 million last year. We don't begrudge Kelsley Jensen for signing his $85 million contract last year. The problem I have is, as David points out, this is an industry in which each team, now some teams are obviously worth more than others, but each team has been valued at a minimum of $1.54 billion. Revenue since 2016 is up $500 million. Since 1992, it's up 325%. So, I'm going to say something that might shock a lot of people. I get why Tony Clark doesn't want to raid the payments of, and all of these payments to David, to Rich Hinton, to Carmen Fanzone, to George Stork-Theodore, all these payments are being shared from something called the collective bargaining tax. It's
the competitive balance tax is what it is.
Correct. It's basically you go over a threshold of salary and the monies are coming out of this pool. So every time someone passes on who was receiving this money, the pool is replenished. So I get why Tony Clark doesn't want to dip into this pool again. Where I have a problem with Tony Clark is on the mission statement of the players. And by the way, Tony Clark should know better, being the first player to ever become the executive director of the Players Union. On the mission statement of the Players Union's website, it says, "We are a band of brothers," don't quote me exactly, "but we care about our present and our future." Okay. Well, you know what?
They forgot one of the P's.
Yeah. What about the past? David alluded to it earlier. He stood out on picket lines. He endured labor stoppages. He went without paychecks, all so that free agency could be ushered in. Future ball players are not paying Tony Clark's salary. Current ball players are. So if you can, in fact, say something or write something like that on your website, why can't you include the past players as well? It's a head scratcher.
Well, let me include something in that real quick. What's the definition of alumni?
Former people who built an organization.
Right. So then why are all the current players members of the Alumni Association?
I agree with you. In fact, I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense. It's a contradiction.
Well, I can tell you why. I can tell you why. So all those guys out there in Colorado Springs can go around the country playing golf tournaments and everything.
That's correct, brother.
You know?
Now, the Major League Baseball Players Alumni Association, as David alluded to earlier, is run by a fellow who is named Dan Foster. And I'm not going to say Dan is a tool of Major League Baseball, but it is a fact that he did work at one point in time for MLB Advanced Media. So I kind of think we know where Dan's bread is buttered. But here's the thing. When David Clyde and Gary Neibauer and later Eddie Robinson were relieved of their duties from the Player Pension Services Committee, do you know who they put in charge who replaced David Clyde and Gary Neibauer and Eddie Robinson? The slugger from the Seattle Mariners, Nelson Cruz, Chris Archer of the Tampa Bay Rays, and another current player. They're not alumni. Why are current players, advocating?
Because it's financial. Because without the current players' financial contributions to the Alumni Association, the Alumni Association, I believe, goes away. Most of us are old and dying, or older and dying. Most of us are just struggling to make ends meet. I'm not trying to make anybody feel sorry for me. When this all started, I was doing okay. I'm down to where, it's paycheck to paycheck. I mean, so I get these letters from the Alumni Association asking me to donate. Do they realize that if I make a donation, then a light bill may not get paid? Do you think they care? They're going to come at you with the BA. They're going to come at you with the baseball assistance team, but you're getting me going.
well, I don't. My theory on this, since Doug got me passionate about it last year, is I always think of things in sport terms, and I think of, remember the old basketball philosophy by University of North Carolina under Dean Smith? They played four corners and they ran the clock out. I think that's what these guys are trying to do. They're trying to play four corners with you.
Exactly. I don't.